beautiful soul. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Astara and I'm an angelic communicator and clairvoyant. And we're going to look at something today which I got as a download. And I'm having a lot of downloads during the Scorpio season. I'm noticing that somehow the twin flame bond is kind of balancing out, or I'm getting better at riding it. I'm having a lot of higher perspectives coming in. So let's see if you enjoy this. So a lot of the questions I've been asking, and I do get asked this question a lot. Why twin flames? Why now? Why is this happening? How is this different to having a soulmate? How is this different to a karmic relationship? And if you've done one of my twin flame workshops, I go through this in quite a lot of detail, but I'll try and summarize a key point that I've just been told this week. And this is where you have a twin flame connection. What makes this different from every other connection you've ever had? I don't know if you can remember growing up, and people would, maybe in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, they would say, oh, I'm really looking for my soulmate. I'm really looking for somebody who's completely compatible. Now, they may not have had the words to say, oh, every other relationship was a karmic. What they were saying really is, I want someone that's really compatible with me on a soul level. And this got me thinking, in our mainstream world, we've been conditioned to look for compatibility, haven't we? We're often sold this idea of compatibility through a kind of lens of maybe just the physical chemistry, maybe just attraction. I knew that that didn't work for me when I was younger. I was like, I'm not sure that really works for me. Even though, and I'll tell you a little hint on that as we go on, because I realized that I was looking at it wrong. And it took me time to come really into my body, into my knowledge about how our instrument works for me to really understand that fully. The other thing we're told is emotional compatibility. Do you get along with someone? Can you be friends with someone? We're sold these ideas about how to find a partner, aren't we? How to find this beautiful life partner if you want one, or to be in a relationship with someone. So we talk about sexual chemistry, we talk about mental connection, and sometimes we talk about emotional alignment. As we've sailed along into the 2000s, 2020s, we're beginning to see there's a lot more narcissistic people in the world. Maybe they were always there. I'm being shown that actually a lot of the world is turning into this narcissistic quality as they disconnect from their hearts, from their spirituality, as they go more into the mind, and they become almost like a cold vessel that they can't actually connect again. They can't actually come into alignment. We've suddenly got this whole landscape now of, well, is someone sexually compatible? Is someone mentally compatible? Is someone emotionally aligned with me? And this is a whole new ball game, isn't it? Particularly as our world pretty much descends into chaos around relationships. And if you notice that once you get past a certain age, it can be hard to find those people that you connect with. It can be a real challenge to have someone that matches your lifestyle, or matches your values, or your humor, or your interests, or maybe someone who hasn't vaccinated, or whatever your thing is. Maybe someone who's spiritual or earns a certain amount, and to have in all of that you're going to be friends with them, and also that you're going to have the shared ideas and values about life. All of this is really beautiful in a way, because we're having to investigate, having to look really into, with a very fine-tooth comb, a part of the human experience about what is love, what makes up a good relationship, what makes up a good connection, what do I need and want from a partnership. And I find this interesting because when I look at like my parents' generation, and maybe even my grandparents' generation, they just sort of met quite young. You're a bit more simple when you're young. I know that I was. When you're in that allowing, maybe perhaps naive, before the world hits in, maybe there's more room to meet and to grow with someone and to mold each other. But what I'm being shown is a lot of that molding has meant that often in a patriarchal society, the masculine molds the feminine, or the feminine sort of molds herself mutably around the masculine. So we end up with like quite a weird, strange situation, and sometimes some very unhealthy relationships. So stick with me here, because I'm just going to lead you into what is opening up for us in our worlds. And this is what the Angelic Council of Light told me, that we are coming into this realignment in a twin flame connection to enter an entirely different dimension for us all. We are, as part of the collective, we're opening up the doors for something entirely new to come into our awareness. This is built on, we've come from this idea in humanity of just, oh, you just get along with someone. Maybe you meet them at school, maybe you meet them quite young, and then you mold together in life, to the idea that you can get divorced and then have a choice about who you mix and mold with. And then maybe you're looking for compatibility in that choice. Maybe you're looking for more long-term characteristics. People go into soulmate. Maybe they're looking for someone who has a connection to their soul, so that they were divinely connected. They were meant to meet in this life and carry out a soul contract. And so the next stage for us to make sense of things here is about our soul growth, and it introduces twin flames, because somehow you're being asked to spiritually come into union with somebody before you really have any sort of physical relationship with them. Well, you might have done it the other way around. You might have met them, had a physical relationship, gone into separation, and then realised you want to actually be together. But it's a similar kind of thing, because we're being asked to meet each other spiritually first, to prepare spiritually and come into connection, to merge souls before you think about the emotional or the physical or the mental attraction. Now, you might have all of them with your twin, and I'm assuming you do, but it's very different from the viewpoint of just being sexually attracted to someone. Like, my parents met at both times they've said they met people dancing. That's what they went out dancing, and they just liked the look of someone. It was all based on sort of animal attraction, sexual attraction, and that's probably why it didn't work, to be honest. It's probably why it was a bit of a disaster, because just to match someone on that level, yeah, it's fine for a bit, but is it going to have longevity? Is it really going to hit all the spots that you need to hit to make a relationship last for a long time? I'm really trying to understand true compatibility in this process. If you fast forward and look at the twin flame dynamic, sometimes you have no idea why you like that person. You just know that it feels absolutely right, that there is an absolute match, that that person feels like home, and you go way past how they look, what they have, what culture they're from, maybe how educated they are. You're coming into a completely different alignment, which is about unconditional love. It's dissolving all the preconditions we might have had about who was going to be our partner in this life. So you're being asked to have a reunion of two energies that share the same essence, that recognize each other in a way that it goes far beyond the mental, emotional, physical realm. It is also a huge challenge to us as human beings, as we know on this journey. And the challenge is, it's asking us to rise into higher levels of awareness about ourselves, about the energy, about our energy bodies, about our mental, emotional, physical compatibility, and the spiritual realms. It's asking us to rise to that level of awareness through understanding love and consciousness in a different way. And what makes this even more interesting is when I asked the Angelic Council, well, why? Because I just keep asking why. I'm like a child, like, can we get more answers here? And it was because as a human race, we're spiritually ready. The beings that are incarnating now, like you and me and many, many others, are very high vibrational, and our children are even more high vibrational. You might come in with a certain energy frequency, but your children come in with a much higher one, believe me. We needed something that would meet us at the level that we came in at. And you will notice that a lot of high vibration souls, a lot of old souls like me, probably decided they weren't going to bother with a relationship anymore because it was so mundane, because it was so painful, because it wasn't meeting at a level that it needed to be met. The compatibility just wasn't there. We have a calling in then, because everything that goes on in the physical realm, I'm being shown, is to meet a need, is to meet a calling in, a desire, a need, a design that we want. And we ask it to come in, and suddenly that's aligning and coming in. So at some point in the collective soup that we're all in, and this was decided before we came in, actually, I'm being shown, but in the collective soup we're all in, maybe a majority of us or a percentage of the planet might have decided that the landscape for romance and pleasure and compatibility in relationship was so dire. And I can say, yeah, I think it is. was so dire and so mundane that it wasn't meeting the need within us. It wasn't meeting the need for soul merger. It wasn't meeting the need for building the etheric heart and for allowing us to step into a new consciousness around love, which is actually around the 5D, so coming out of the physical constraints of the physical world and to come into this 5D reality where all things are possible, where there's this alignment of energetic realms between the physical and the spiritual, this bridge that was also happening in the heart. We needed this so that we could begin to clear up all the stuff that was here and allow us to start building the etheric heart, allow us to come into unity with one another and with ourselves and with our twin. So at first this can all feel quite overwhelming, like, oh, why is it happening? Because when your twin flame appears in your life, you often realize you've been preparing for them all along. And maybe not in the ways that you thought you were preparing for them. One of the key things I noticed was that my twin was like a smudging together of all the different boyfriends I'd had. And it didn't make any sense. I was like, wow, that's really weird. And sometimes I'd look at him and he'd look like one of my boyfriends. I'm like, that is just weird. Have I just been calling in that design, knowing it was in my blueprint? And then also, all the other things that you'll notice, I was circling my twin. Maybe I'll do a video on that. I was even living in a building, like behind his building for years, circling him in some way, but never actually meeting. So what you're noticing here is you are attracting in exactly what you need, but it can take time to get it right. And somewhere you're preparing yourself, you're preparing your physical energy, you're preparing your mental energy, you're preparing your emotional energy. When you meet your twin, as the awakened twin, you're often much more ready than they are. We know that. But actually, you having that alignment helps them to come into alignment. And you might notice what used to attract you before. And I think the matrix twin definitely goes through this, that maybe before they're only attracted by physical beauty. I think my matrix twin was definitely just interested in physical beauty or how things looked or having a little dolly bird on his arm or something like this. And then you'll notice that the mental stimulation might have been a key factor. So some people just go, oh, I don't care how they look as long as I'm mentally stimulated. And then you might notice the emotional comfort that you get from someone. And this is where we get very codependent. And it's definitely where I've moved from. Like, a friendship was there, that would be enough for me. But it isn't anymore. And it wasn't enough for me. That's what I learned through this process, that I was not coming into energetic alignment. I didn't actually know the depth that I needed. The emotional depth, the mental depth, the physical depth, the spiritual depth is where the twin flame dynamic is taking us. When I talked about the video about the type, and I wrote on the banner for the video, my type is the soul penetrating type. That just came through like quite naturally. I hadn't really thought about it. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's right. That's my type, the soul penetrating type. It's like we needed the depth. We needed the depth of the connection to make it feel aligned. And this is because your soul, your frequency, your spiritual vibration can meet theirs. You've been looking for that in a world which is full of things that are quite shallow, things that sometimes are quite meaningless, sometimes, makes us all feel separate and lost and lacking intimacy and not wanting to go to the depth. It's like this is brought in to help you go to the depth, to help you reach alignment. So this is why the twin flame dynamic is so intense and maybe so uncomfortable at times and possibly confusing, because to be spiritually compatible, we also have to upgrade to meet it. We have to evolve. We have to shed our old patterns. We have to shed beliefs and versions of ourselves that no longer resonate with where our soul is trying to go, where our soul is trying to expand us to. Now, you might notice that during phases of your separation or emotional distance, you're kind of recalibrating your energy. You're working out how to release control, how to surrender into it, how to release all your judgments about how things are going to be. The matrix twin definitely struggles with that. So you're both learning how to meet each other at this new spiritual level. When we're looking at coming into union, you have to notice that that alignment has to be done at all the different levels. And I have done a video on that, how you have to go through these different initiations, these different alignments in yourself to be able to come in connection with your twin. This is why it feels like a mirror, because to do this growth work without your twin, you probably wouldn't bother. Because your twin flame is reflecting your growth, often your fears and your shadows, but it's also holding the light as a reflection of you to help you go through these upgrades. You can't actually hide from yourself in this connection. You're being guided to be who you are in this life, and that means truly who you are. And so when you meet your counterpart and they meet you, you can create a place of authenticity and wholeness and resonance between you both at all of the levels. This is why it's so powerful, because that kind of resonance is a real amplification of soul energy and pure energy, divine energy power. So, yeah, if you're in the twin flame journey, you're not seeking chemistry, but you're going to get it. There's going to be huge amounts of chemistry. You're actually seeking a harmony of the spirit. You're seeking that resonance on a soul level. And it requires time and patience and healing and a lot of trust in this process. Often the connection can feel too much. It can be quite challenging. You can feel like it's too much to be near your twin, and they might feel the same way about you. And it's not meant to hurt you in any way, but it's helping you to realign, helping you to open your heart, to awaken your spirit, to activate into a higher level. When you raise your vibration, you become spiritually aligned with yourself and you automatically align with your twin. That's the idea. And this is a magical expression of the divine in action. And it's not telling you to go for something less, to make yourself smaller. We're always being asked to expand, to grow, to get more expansive in our expression of who we are, to get more creative. Because the human race has been held down, taken out of this divine capacity and quality it has as a divine creator. And this kind of relationship, this kind of journey is taking us through all the initiation stages. And let's face it, if it wasn't about love, if it wasn't about your twin, you probably wouldn't bother. This is your magic coming through, coming forward, asking you to meet it at different levels. So if this resonates with you and your soul, just know you're on this incredible journey of spiritual alignment. I'm being shown the wave of this is going to be how twin flames are bringing in this new compatibility level for all these new beautiful souls coming to the earth. In the age of Aquarius, most of us will be doing this. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this message, and let me know if you agree or not. I'm really happy if you don't agree with that viewpoint to speak it in the comments. I know a lot of you have so much knowledge, so much wisdom, but if you want to come and work with me, I'd love to do a soul session with you. It's brilliant to do an Akashic record session and have a look and see why you're on this journey, maybe even what your soul purpose is in this life. So go to my website, my link tree, my Instagram,